Now, we told you last week about a Facebook post made by Captain Jamie Deere, who is transgender. And that matters in this context because the content of this post was very clearly a violation of their social media policy. You might not like the social media policy, and I've been consistent on this. I don't like the social media policy. You should be able to say controversial, quote unquote, things, especially if they're in the mainstream on social media without worrying about getting terminated. Okay. However, I also believe in consistency for other people or from other people. And in cases in which King County deputies have said things online that activists on the left didn't like, those folks would immediately be placed on administrative leave with pay as they do their investigation. Now, Jamie Deere apparently didn't suffer any kind of pause, an administrative leave, or a pause on their probation, because this is someone who's a captain on probation, and that's almost up. And when you are put into paid leave for an investigation, your probation stops. You're paused for a bit. So it's prolonged for obvious reasons. Now, in the original post that was made that caught a lot of people's attention, he writes of Donald Trump, "If you support this transphobic, homophobic, racist, misogynistic POS, then our differences are too much for me to tolerate." Now, if you're a deputy who supports Donald Trump, and there are many who support Donald Trump, and you hear that your captain says that there are differences that are too much for him to tolerate with you, you might question whether or not you can get a fair shot underneath this captain. I think that's a reasonable concern. The same way if someone said, if you support Biden, then you're all those different things. I'd say, okay, that's also, I might agree with it a little bit more, but it's obviously wrong when you're in a position of authority like a captain. And so once this story was publicized, I think we were the only ones who did it. It was an exclusive then, it's still an exclusive. Then behind the scenes, Captain Deere was quote unquote investigated or is being investigated for policy violations, but still on the job. And as a result, the King County Police Officers Guild, let's just say they're not mincing any words. They put out a statement, their executive board, and they point out the glaring double standard when it comes to discipline in the King County Sheriff's Office. The clear double standard. And they write, the executive board, "This statement has created a hostile environment, leaving some members questioning whether they will receive equal treatment under his command simply because of their political views. Leadership must be impartial, and this post undermines that principle." And then they went on to say that, quote, "When a captain, someone in a leadership position with the authority to impact discipline and career progression, makes broad inflammatory statements labeling those who voted for President Trump as racist, homophobic, transphobic, it erodes confidence in his ability to lead and treat all members fairly." Is there anything unreasonable about that position? I don't think so. Now, they said in this letter that once they learned about the post and that Jamie Deere was not placed on administrative leave, they, quote, "immediately expressed our concerns to the sheriff and undersheriff. We were told to trust the process. However, past incidents involving our own members have resulted in immediate administrative leave when their social media activity was deemed inappropriate or, quote, damaging to the brand of the King County Sheriff's Office. This inconsistency in discipline reflects a double standard, one that unfairly holds rank and file members to a different level of accountability than command staff. When you have that going on, you start to lose a lot of trust. You start to impact morale. People start to get really upset. People start thinking, why is it that I work here when I could work for a department that is much more supportive and less political? Why would I work here? I can go so many other places. They need staff just as much as the King County Sheriff's Office does. And when that seeps in and that starts to percolate, things get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it makes it harder for anyone to have respect for command staff. Now, it's my understanding that this is one of those issues that perhaps some also in positions of power are questioning whether or not this is being handled correctly. I don't know. But I can tell you, because I never get, and shame on you guys, by the way, deputies, you never give me anything. No leaks or anything. I got to do harder work to get to stories. You can't leak stuff to me. Part of the reason why they can't leak is that there's a policy now that tracks if you're screenshotting emails and whatnot on work phones, because I guess people were screenshotting stuff. They weren't sending it to me. I almost never hear. I heard from a ton of deputies. Some I even questioned how they got my phone number. Like, how'd you get this number? I don't even know who you are.
Word gets around.
It really does. They share my number, cops. So much over this Facebook post. And it's really not even so much the politics of it. That plays a role, no doubt. But this is just about the double standard. And you cannot have this kind of double standard. And so what the union decided to do in this case was encourage people to file complaints against the captain. And they should. This should be treated the way any other case would be. And let's be clear, if this was a captain who went after BLM like Detective Mike Brown did several years ago, he got fired for it. That captain would be placed on leave and then would be demoted. They would get another shot at becoming captain, another probationary period, but they would get demoted. I think there's no doubt whatsoever about that. But in King County, I guess if you hold the quote-unquote left position, the correct position to them, no consequences. Now, I wrote about this up at KTTH.com. Remember, no other media outlet is covering this, which is why there's so many people at the sheriff's office, the deputies, who think this is just going to be, pushed under the rug, swept under the rug. So it's on all of us to make sure that people hear about this story. So go to KTTH.com or text the keyword RANTZ, R-A-N-T-Z, to 1-800-465-8770. I'll send you a link directly to my blog, and you can read it, but also share it. Spread it so other people see it, and then they share it.